Welcome back to another episode of Rock Boys Football. Miller Moss on Sunday night, I think shocked a lot of people across the country in the absolute clinic that he put on as the starting quarterback for USC. And I think it shocked a lot of people across the country. I don't think it shocked a lot of USC fans as, we kind of talked about Miller Moss. One, when has Lincoln Riley ever missed on a quarterback? It just doesn't happen. And so for Lincoln Riley to give the keys to Miller Moss, he obviously saw something in Miller Moss. But I think more importantly, I feel like people talked about Miller Moss like he was some sort of average quarterback. Miller Moss was a very highly touted recruit coming out of high school. Now, he didn't get the attention that Caleb Williams got, and Caleb Williams rightfully got a lot of attention. That being said, you saw a quarterback that one is extremely talented, but I think more importantly, has just been sitting back and marinating, for lack of better terms, in a Lincoln Riley system. And he came out there Sunday night and just put on a clinic at the quarterback spot. And I think the thing that stood out to me the most, you had a lot of people across the country saying, all right, Miller Moss might be good because he's playing within this Lincoln Riley offense. He's going to be a game manager quarterback. Yes, Lincoln Riley, or Miller Moss, I should say, certainly plays a little bit more within the offense than we saw Caleb Williams the last couple of years. That's not necessarily a bad thing. And the number that stood out to me the most, and Miller Moss is tied for the lead in the country in big time throws after week one. And Miller Moss is a guy that can make every single throw you want him to make on the football field. You make no mistake about it. He was 4 of 4 going 20 plus yards down the field. He only threw one incompletion on a football that traveled over 10 yards down the field. And Miller Moss came out there, not only operated and ran this USC offense extremely efficiently, but I think more importantly, he showed you that he's a legitimate quarterback that can raise the level of the offense around him. And he did that against LSU. Want to get into a little bit of the film and talk about, what made Miller Moss have such a phenomenal game against LSU and really what makes him a good quarterback in the Big Ten. Now, before we get into it, as always, to the USC fans, it's been a blast breaking this game down. Yesterday, we took a look at the USC defense. I said we would take a look at Miller Moss on Thursday. I couldn't wait. Wanted to get into it. So we're doing it Wednesday night instead. I can't thank you guys enough for all the support. It's been a blast. And the support hit from you guys has been awesome. If y'all do enjoy the content, consider subscribing to the channel. Once again, I invite everybody to just let me know how they're feeling in the comments section. And without further ado, let's get into this one. And before we get into the film, let's start with what we saw, right? 27 of 36 for 378 yards and a touchdown. The numbers that jump out the screen, 5 big-time worthy throws. That is number 1 in the country, tied with Shadur Sanders at Colorado. I think more importantly, 0 turnover-worthy plays. Yeah, you saw a couple balls get batted down, but I don't think those are considered turnover-worthy plays according to PFF. I seem like half of Miller Moss's incompletions were pretty much balls batted down at the line of scrimmage. And I think he's going to get more accustomed to, hey, you're not necessarily the biggest quarterback. You got to make sure you're finding those throwing windows past the defensive lineman. I don't think that's going to be a concern. The numbers that stood out to me the most, 4 of 4, 20 plus yards down the field, 7 of 6, 10 plus yards down the field, in a completion percentage when he was under pressure of 75%. He was 9 of 12 when under pressure. One of the things that we would not Caleb Williams, but kind of highlighted around Caleb Williams, and just kind of for a reference point here, Caleb Williams' completion percentage when he was under pressure last year was 47%. Miller Moss was exceptionally cool and collective when he was under pressure. The ball was almost immediately coming out when it needed to come out. He knew where to go when he was hot under pressure. I think that was one of the most impressive things was, and Miller Moss only had really one game of starting experience going into this matchup. Blake Baker put a lot of heat on him in the pocket. Miller Moss managed it exceptionally well. Now, getting into a few things that I think really jumped out when you go watch this game a couple times. One, the pocket presence. Now, this is going to be a phenomenal catch by Kyron Hudson as well. But one of the things that stood out is, and it's something, quite frankly, that USC fans not necessarily known or are used to seeing, like Miller Moss getting a little bit muddy in the pocket. Eyes never leave downfield. I mean, he's stepping up into the pocket. Eyes remain downfield. And then he throws, a really good catch by Kyron Hudson. But Miller Moss puts in the only place that Kyron Hudson can go make this play. So the ball placement was really good. But again, I think what stood out to me the most on this football play here is the pocket presence that he showed. Like, hey, our eyes are never dropping down the field, and we're stepping up. We're keeping our eyes downfield, off platform throw, taking a hit, putting the ball right where it needs to be. And these are high level throws that we saw Miller Moss make consistently against LSU. I think the second thing I want to go to is the pre snap stuff. You can tell Miller Moss is a quarterback that has been marinating for, again, lack of better terms, in this Lincoln Riley offense. He was not just the scout team quarterback, he was the quarterback too. He was learning behind Caleb Williams, learning from the best quarterback developer that we see in college football. This kid, you saw a kid that knew what he was doing on the football field. And right here, you're seeing Blake Baker again, going to heat him up. You're going to see man coverage on the outside. They're going to play that cover one man in the red zone here. I love this read by Miller Moss. It's pre-snap read, but he knows exactly where he's going. He has his 6'4" wide receiver in Jacoby Lane matched up against a 5'10" cornerback in Sage Ryan. He's going to get hot here. The ball's going to come out immediately, and just go give Jacoby Lane a chance to go make a play. Ends up drawing a pass interference, ball in the two. The pre-snap stuff I thought was really impressive. And quite frankly, I think they should have went to this concept more, because Blake Baker was sending a lot of pressure, leaving his cornerbacks on islands. They kind of got to it a little bit more towards the end of the game. If teams are going to show you that look, and you have guys like Kyron Hudson or Jacoby Lane or Deuce Robinson, that when you throw them up the football, it's not a 50-50 ball. I mean, it's 80-20 with guys like Deuce and Jacoby Lane. And obviously getting a pass interference, getting the ball at the two. Next thing I want to go to is the anticipation that you saw from Miller Moss. Really, really impressive. And I think what was so funny, I said this right when we saw this one live. We broke down this same exact concept during his game against Louisville, where he's ripping one up the seam to Mekhi Lemon. I think we saw the exact same play in the bowl game against Louisville in December. What you notice here is, one, he's going to throw his wide receivers open. He's a guy that understands that sometimes the throwing windows are going to be tight, and you have to throw your wide receivers open. This is exactly what he does to Mekhi Lemon, ripping it up the seam, putting it right on his face mask. You're going to get a better look at it in the all 22. Again, eyes never drop. And more importantly, like, you see when this ball's coming out, Mekhi Lemon's barely getting out of his break. He is throwing him into that throwing lane right here, puts it right on the face mask. When you throw with anticipation like this, it is virtually impossible for defense to deal with what you can do. And I think finally the ball placement was just always really good. Again, almost never put the ball in harm's way, besides when the balls were batted down at the line of scrimmage. Taking a look at this play here, and I got to eat my words here. I consistently said in the week leading up to this football game, I would like to see USC go with four wide receivers and kind of eliminate the tight end in this matchup. Wrong. Like, just not giving enough credit to the playmakers that they have at tight end. Lake McCree makes a really good play on this, but I think Miller Moss as well. Like, little RPO action here. Greg Penn plays this perfectly. I mean, he has eyeballs right on Lake McCree. He's going to travel with them up the seam here. There's a small window where this ball can go into, and he puts it right on the back shoulder of Lake McCree. Nice body adjustment, getting a chunk play. Again, that's not necessarily the flashiest throw that you'll see, but it was really, really impressive from Miller Moss. So you start taking a look at the things you saw from Miller Moss, not only a quote unquote game manager in a good way, in the sense that, hey, Lincoln Riley is going to scheme me up a great offense. I'm going to have throws to make. I'm just going to play within the offense. But hey, Lincoln Riley knows what Miller Moss can do. Miller Moss, I think Lincoln Riley knows that Miller Moss can make really, really high level throws. Lincoln Riley asked him to make some high level throws, and every single time Lincoln Riley asked him to do so, and Miller Moss came up with the throws. So I think what stands out to me is, one, the overall command of the offense. But I think more importantly, you saw a quarterback that made the high level throws when he needed to. He was checking the ball down when he needed to. He dealt with pressure exceptionally well, and he kept the football out of harm's way. If you get that version of Miller Moss throughout 12 games of the football season, this USC team is going to be a hard out. And again, he doesn't need to play hero ball like Caleb Williams had to do last year. I think a lot of times when Caleb Williams got in trouble is because he knew he needed to score on pretty much every possession, because this USC defense was a disaster last year. Having a better defense, I think, is only going to help Miller Moss play quarterback, because he knows that he can just play within the offense. He doesn't need to be a hero. He has elite playmakers on the outside. That's something that enough people are giving credit to this USC pass catching group. It's guys they haven't necessarily heard of. Guys like Jacoby Lane, guys like Mekhi Lemon, guys like Kyron Hudson. Everyone want to talk about Zachariah Branch. Everybody knows Zachariah Branch. He's certainly in that group. these pass catchers around Miller Moss are really good. He's got the best play caller in the game in Lincoln Riley. If Miller Moss plays like that, USC's win a lot of ball games, especially if their defense can maintain the performance that we saw Sunday night. Clinic by Miller Moss. It was a blast to watch. We'll cut it there again. Appreciate you guys rocking with it. If y'all do enjoy the content, consider subscribing to the channel. Appreciate you guys, and we'll talk to y'all later.